Al Bedrosian was elected to the Roanoke County Board of Supervisors in the fall of 2013, 16 years after he first ran for public office, losing a House of Delegates race to Dick Cranwell. Born in the Marshall Islands, he also lived in Thailand and Greece before moving permanently to the United States at age 16. His father was a federal contractor. The Virginia Tech graduate, married with 5 children, founded the Roanoke Valley Homeschool Recreation League and is its director. Bedrosian describes himself as a conservative Christian and has already made a name for himself as supervisor for the Hollins District in Roanoke County. Al Bedrosian, welcome back to the studios and welcome to the interview.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
First question, do you ever think 16 years after losing a House of Delegates race to Dick Cranwell that you'd be back running for office again last fall?
Well, I always thought I'd get involved somehow. I didn't know in what manner, but actually local stuff I think I prefer. I think, you're closer to it. You can do other things in life. You're not gone for several months or whatever. So I actually think this is probably a better fit for me.
Mm-hmm. And you homeschool your kids. You're the president of a homeschool recreation league.
Right.
5 kids with a wife who are very tied into the local community. So local issues, do you think resounds with you more?
Yeah, and I think it's just that you can probably have more of an effect. You're 1 out of 5 votes instead of maybe being 1 out of 100 votes. Being in the community, I like it because everybody you meet, everybody you talk to in your area, they kind of know what you're doing and what you're up to, and so it's been good. I've, like you said, 5 children, and one's at Liberty right now, and the others are still being homeschooled. One is an artist, so she's won some awards with the Taubman Center and doing some artwork. So it's been good, very good.
You've been on the board a few months as we tape. You've been the most quotable supervisor in your first few months in the job. Is that a role that you seek, Al, or is it just happening because of the issues that are coming up? Or did you go to the board feeling you had a mandate to discuss certain issues? The ICLEI, the climate control thing, prayer in the meetings,
right.
Capital projects expenditures. Did you feel you came to the board with a mandate?
No, not really, because the reality is in the voting there were 3 of us, and I didn't get 60-70% of the vote. I don't think there's ever anything so cut dry that everybody believes the same way. I think that's the kind of community we have. I think the reason I'm probably quotable is that I think I ask questions, and I think it is my job to represent people, to seek after answers to certain things. If something bothers me or something I think needs to be questioned, I do. I have strong Christian beliefs, so when we do talk about issues of prayer, I do have a stance on it. I think a lot of people tend to quiet themselves down because they don't want to say something where they may get quoted and then they have to, but I don't really have a problem with it. I guess I've always stated the same thing. I don't mean to be controversial, and I never say it, I don't think, in a controversial way. I just say it. Mm-hmm. It may be controversial, and I'll have to just let the chips fall where they may, and I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm. The way you gained your seat, the Hollins District, right. You won the Republican nomination on a coin flip because you tied Mike Bailey, the primary vote, and then again you split. There were 3 candidates. Do you feel like you still have a mandate, or do you feel this urge that you have to be fair to everybody involved? Because a lot of people did not vote for you.
Correct, and I think in any election, it's always going to be that way. Even when you figure that a wipeout election would be 60% of the vote or whatever, there's still 40% of the people that did not vote for you. So I think it's probably hard to say that any president, I think even Ronald Reagan, you give it as a mandate when he had maybe 60-some%, but again, a lot of people think differently. I understand that. But I think my thing is, as I'm elected and I'm in office, I do have a point of view. And I think I need to bring my point of view into government because I think that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. I find that sometimes in government, people try to silence you before you give your view. And I haven't won many things. I seem to vote in the minority on a lot of issues, and I don't get upset. I mean, I think it's important that I do have the vote and that I make my opinion known. But it's fine. If I lose, and we move on to the next thing. And if I can ever get to win on something, I try to do that. But that's fine.
The whole thing with RC Clear and ICLEI, which is the environmental committee, the county pays $1,200 a year for software to help measure carbon footprints.
Right.
And there was, people in the county concerned that it was tied to the UN and Agenda 21. That went back and forth. You actually planted the seed there, and the county's going to defund that $1,200 a year, correct?
Correct.
It's still going back and forth. There was a letter in the paper today. It starts out, Bedrosian lacks common sense on climate change. His job is ascertaining facts in an unbiased way, making judgments based on facts, and putting personal beliefs aside to serve the people. Do you believe that, or where do your personal beliefs enter into your decisions?
Well, I think everybody's personal beliefs do, and I think it'd be hypocritical for anybody to say, well, you know what, I just come as a total vacuum, I know nothing, and here it is. I think everybody brings their personal beliefs. But the ICLEI thing, I think, is a very interesting issue. I think one side, I think, tries to confuse ICLEI with environmental issues, clean air, clean water. They're two separate issues. And I've even asked the people on RC Clear, I think Mr. Freeman, when I had an opportunity,
Freeman, right.
Okay, we started asking about, okay, clean air, clean water, we got it. We have a monitoring station in Vinton, it monitors all the levels. We have our own Roanoke County group that does community planning. They check on things like that. That's one issue. ICLEI, the issue I had with ICLEI is that I'm not a believer in man-made global warming. So you could say there, I bring my personal beliefs.
Right.
Everybody tries to say it's a settled science, it's done. No, it isn't.
And there was just another report in the paper this week about global warming.
I got you. Oh, yeah, and there were several that came out on global warming, but there's always controversy, and the proof source is that 20 or 30 years ago it was called global warming. Before that, there was a global cooling going to come. Then it became global warming, and then when that didn't really happen and things have kind of settled down, then it becomes climate change. And I have no problem with people changing because they're looking at things differently, but that proves to me that it's not settled. Climates change. And you know, this where I think I have a belief in a God that created the world and created humanity and controls the climates. And I think a lot of people do have that view. I don't view that if I drive my SUV that I'm putting stuff into the air that's going to make the earth hotter and warmer and melt the glaciers and all that. I don't view that as real. And I think there's been conflicting science. We tend to look at our life right now, but we don't tend to look at, hey, from the beginning of time, what is the right temperature for the earth? What should the earth be like? We don't know all these answers, and so that's the issue, I think.
Right, but the thing is, even if you don't believe in man-made global warming
Correct.
or global warming in general, if we know there are ways, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
If you know there are ways where you can reduce carbon emissions by driving less or insulating so you use less electricity, and so coal-fired plants don't have to fire up. If we know there are ways we can do it, isn't that worthwhile?
Yeah, I think that should be left to the marketplace, and I think this is where we'd have probably the disagreement. When I look at ICLEI's plan, and I've read through that plan several times, where actually it was put together about what ICLEI was and what they were looking at doing, was taking an inventory of these carbon emissions and then putting policies in place and then monitoring them. Well, to me, that says that we're on a course now to really control people's lives, to show them that, hey, you can't drive that car. Hey, we're going to build only communities where we're not using as much carbon. Personally, I don't have a problem with carbon. I think we make it seem like this carbon, we've got everybody so scared about carbon that it's like this most evil thing in the world, and that if you, again, drive cars that have gasoline instead of an electric car, you're in essence doing something wrong, and I don't believe that. So, you know, I don't want to be hypocritical. I think I'm very consistent with my view. And so my view would be to say, hey, we don't need ICLEI, and I think RC Clear should be disbanded, and we should have another group that is actually interested in just air quality, checking on those things and reporting back to the county supervisors. And I'm good with that. But I don't think we should, I think the issue is we're meshing that together to say that if you don't believe in global warming, man-made global warming, you also don't care about the environment. And I think that's disingenuous.
Okay, just a couple more minutes. Let's fire through some things here. Do you see yourself as a contrarian on the board, where you're just gonna on every issue just about you're gonna question things? And if you do, are you worried that you're going to alienate other members of the board?
Gotcha. Well, there may be two questions there. I don't know. I do find that there are not a whole lot of questions asked in a board meeting. And that concerns me, that, you know, I don't like to do things in secret. I think that when we're in a board meeting that we should question.
And you do, sort of like from an everyman viewpoint, like, what?
Absolutely.
Fill me in.
If I don't understand it, I know that the audience that's there and the audience that's on TV has no idea. You know, I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I think I get it, and I think I have an understanding of things, and things get complicated. Also, if the attorney gets up and starts talking very legalese, I don't appreciate that. I want it in common English so that everybody understands. And then again, once we have all the facts out in the open, let's vote on it. And so if that makes me contrarian, then that is what it is. But I think that's just what, I think people like that. I think I've had a lot, I mean, I've had overwhelming. There's some that are negative, but overwhelmingly is positive of, thank you for keeping us informed. And every time I tell people something, I say, hey, come to the meetings. Agree or disagree with me. I'm good with that.
Capital expenditures. It seems like sometimes you're saying that Roanoke County should not build anything unless they have a bucket of cash, like for a library or rec center. Do you believe that? Or I mean, do you not believe that the county should float bonds for any project?
Well, here's what I believe. I believe that we should do things similar to what we do at home. It is true that now I've been fortunate enough, I paid my house off because I think there are certain things you need to get done. But if I need to do an expenditure, we had to buy a car. I didn't have $15,000, $16,000, so we borrowed it, and then I immediately start paying it off to get rid of the debt. The county is using that as just a way to acquire things all the time. And I think that's what's dangerous. We have, the interesting thing is that the county has about $30 million of cash in certain buckets, but they don't want to use it because that helps us borrow more. That's concerning to me. If you want to do a $10 million event library, then let's pay cash. Now, does everybody think that we should pay cash for that library? Is it really that worth it? When you start borrowing money for everything, you start doing things that maybe are not absolutely vital and a core responsibility of government. You just do it because you can borrow the money. So that's my issue. I have no problem with us putting money into infrastructure and doing things that are important, but we really need to think about it. It's debt. You know, we have to pay back debt. Roanoke County we pay $8 million of interest every year, just interest on the debt every year. It's just money that's wasted. And we need to be very careful. It's not like it's free money.
Since you mentioned, we got about a minute left, you mentioned core. What is the core function? What is the function of local government in your estimation? Where does it end and where does it start? Okay,
my estimation would be that we need to keep the streets clean, keep public safety, make sure that if somebody wakes up and you're being harmed, somebody's there to help you. Fire and rescue, those things are core services. Again, even keeping the streets, although VDOT handles a lot of that, but making the arteries of our community open. Other than that, I think there are very, very few things that we really should be involved in. We have decided as a community that schools, now we homeschool our children, but we've decided as a community that schools, we will provide buildings. Okay, I'm good with that, but does every building have to be a $30 million school? Can't we renovate and just spend $2 million or $3 million? So schools and education would be the next part of that, and everything else I think after that we need to look at.
All right, Al, good to see you again. We'll have to leave it there. Al Bedrosian, Roanoke County Supervisor, thanks for joining us today.
You got it. Thank you.
This is The Interview. I'm Gene Marrano. We'll be right back.